option. You may start, Jim.
All right, thank you. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us in today's presentation from NAMI Urban Los Angeles. In this meeting, there's a couple of things we'd like to share with you up front, and that is that this meeting is being recorded. And so later in the presentation, if you have the opportunity, and there will be an opportunity to ask questions, please do not use your family's name, because that would be a HIPAA violation for us to then rebroadcast this later on the internet for others to look at later. So remember, just don't use their names. Also, if we have any interruptions, we've been plagued with some spam, and if that happens, we're going to try to shut that off immediately. Gosh, there was one other thing. What was that, Gail?
The chat.
The chat. Thank you for the reminder. Getting old. What we see is that oftentimes people start asking questions in the chat, and there's all these sidebar conversations going on, and then they're not listening to the presentation. And then later, when it comes to questions, they're asking questions about material that we just presented because they weren't listening. And so for that reason, please don't, have sidebar conversations. If you want to pose a question, then we'll do our best to get to that question at the end of the meeting. Also, we're going to give you our contact information. You can always contact us after the fact, after the meeting. So with that, we'll move forward. And Araceli, if you can bring up the next page, I would appreciate it. Thank you. So again, today's presentation is presented by NAMI Urban Los Angeles. I'm Jim Farrell. I run a conservator assistance group in Orange County. So for those of you that are from Orange County, just know that you'll be able to ask or contact me at any time later and anything regarding Orange County. Gail Evangueletti is known throughout all of Los Angeles. Everybody knows who she is, and she has wonderful contacts for you. So feel free to call her as well. Just remember that Gail is on the East Coast. So if you want to call her for some reason, please don't call late, because she, for her, 7 o'clock here is 10 o'clock there, and she's not going to be real happy with you. So today with us is Olga Rodriguez. She's from the Department of Mental Health with the Public Guardian's Office, and she's going to be joining with us in the presentation today. So thank you all.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone.
Great. So let's go to the next slide, please, Araceli. Special thanks and shout out to Maddie Cobbs, Harold Turner, who is the president of NAMI Urban Los Angeles, and Araceli, who is the webmaster behind the scenes here that's running all of this on her day off. So today's a work day for her, and thank you, Araceli, for doing this. So we appreciate NAMI Urban so much, because they're one of the very few that will give this sort of support, not only to us, but to the community. And so deep appreciations. Next slide.
I'd like to just add something about Araceli. She keeps us straight. So we appreciate her so much.
So I want to make a disclaimer, and I'll just read this. We share what we have learned from you seeking to give the greatest probability for success for recovery. We make suggestions. You determine the direction you wish to pursue. It may be that you have a better insight into the situation. You don't have to always do exactly as we tell you. We present the laws that should help guide your decisions. Most information presented pertains to Los Angeles County, and some of this will be for Orange County. The LPS conservatorship laws are the same and apply the same for every county in the state of California. So even though there's going to be quite a bit of information, rightfully so, for Los Angeles, just know that if you need that type of information for Orange County, call me. If I can't answer your question, I'll find somebody for you that can. Okay, next slide, please. So always refer to yourself as conservator. Anytime you're calling, if your loved one's 5150, and you're calling in to see how they're doing, or you're needing to talk to the doctor, don't say, hi, this is, Mr. So-and-so. Just say, hi, this is like myself. I would say, I'm Jim Farrell. I'm conservator of Morgan Farrell and I want XYZ. Always refer to yourself as the conservator, not the parent. This kind of establishes your authority to be talking to them, and they then will verify that and be able to respond back to you and your questions. We also want to encourage you to take the free NAMI Family to Family class. It's something that NAMI Urban Los Angeles has to offer, and you can find and sign up for that on their website, namiurbanlosangeles.com, I believe that is. You want to keep
.org.
.org. Thank you for the correction, Gail. She keeps me straight. Keep 2 journals, okay? One of the journals should be for your medications. You want to, track, any new medications that are being prescribed, and then watch and observe your loved one. Is that helping with their behavior? Is that helping with their hallucinations and so forth? And as you do this over time, you're going to really have a real log of what medications best work for your loved one. As well, anytime, it doesn't matter who you talk to, if you're calling about matters that pertain to your loved one, you want to write down who you talked to and when that was. That always enables you to get back to that same person for follow-up, and it just verifies the conversations. Also, we want to really encourage everybody to get actively involved. There's ways to get involved with your immediate county. If you have issues, you can go to your behavioral health board meetings. You can go to the county supervisors on issues that you feel strongly about and present them. As well, get involved legislatively. Join the various support groups on the internet, and it does make a difference. Don't just sit back and crawl into a little hole. Get active out there and get going. So anyway, next slide, please.
But no, let me just make a comment on that.
That was your slide. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's all right. The 2 journals, you're keeping one with the medications and in your observance of your loved one. Also, anything they say, you want to write that in that journal. Now, when they say things that are way off base, do not correct them. If you correct them, then they will tend to clam up and not say anything to you. You want that communication between you and them to be open. What you can do is say, I don't see it that way. That's got to make you feel very uncomfortable. Or I don't see it that way, but can I help you with this situation? Do something like that. But the moment you say, well, that's not true, that didn't happen, chances are they will quit telling you things. Even when they are in the stage of recovery, you don't ever want to correct them, because that is the only way you're going to know where their mind is and be able to help them with that. And on the people, when you speak to people, you write down the date, the time, who you spoke to, because unfortunately, still a lot of people tell you things that aren't true. When they do, you call Jim or I, and we get that corrected. We don't want people fired, but we want to correct what they're saying, because they just regurgitate what other people have told them. And if they know the way it really is, then they won't be doing that anymore. Okay, next slide. LPS Conservatorship, it is the term used in California, and we went over a lot of this yesterday, for involuntary mental health treatment. It was named after the Latimer-Petras Short legislators in 1974, and it is in the laws known as the California Welfare and Institutions Code 5200 plus. These laws are old. They're working on changing them, because they really don't reflect the current scientific research that we have in treatment for recovery. In other words, from back then, we only had 1 or 2 medications. Now we've got like 20. So it makes a big difference. And whatever medication works for one person doesn't necessarily work for another. It is trial and error trying to figure out which one is the best one for your loved one. The laws have been revised, but will not take place in Los Angeles or Orange County until 2026. And we're going to kind of be addressing the new laws, what they are, but we will also let you know what the old laws are. And believe me, hospitals go by the old laws. So, and we'll give you tips what to say and what not to say. Next slide. Olga.
Yes, so Public Guardian Office. So we do provide private conservators with a booklet to assist them in navigating the conservatorship over their loved ones. So the booklet is called Supporting Your Loved One book. It's the 10th edition, and the web address is here. We also have it available on our DMH website under dmh.alleycounty.gov. Once you are on that DMH website, it could be, you would go to the Our Services tab on the top. You click on that, and then on your left-hand side, you'll see a box. You could click on Public Guardian, and then you'll scroll down and you'll click on Supporting Your Loved One book. So this booklet, it's a great resource that we provide private conservators that explains the LPS conservatorship, what the duties of a private conservator are, what to expect when conservators are speaking with their loved one's treatment team. It also explains living arrangements, placing the conservatee in the least restrictive setting to meet their particular needs. Reporting to the court, as there are certain matters that the conservator needs to keep the court informed of, such as when a conservatee moves from one location or placement to another, or if the conservator moves, for instance. And it also explains how to go about handling your loved one's finances. So a private conservator can go ahead and manage their loved one's finances as a representative payee for their SSI and Social Security benefits, for instance, without the need of being appointed over the estate. But it also, and the booklet also does provide forms, at the very end, forms that the conservator will need during the time that they are serving as the private conservator for their loved one.
Okay. Olga, the internet that's on this slide, is that correct now or has that changed to acquire that booklet?
Well, actually, I haven't seen this particular web address, but if you do go on our website, it is dmh.alleycounty.gov. That's the DMH website.
Okay.
And then once you're there at that site, there is a tab at the very top. It's called Our Services. And one would just click on that, the Our Services tab, and then you'll find on the left-hand side a little section that says Public Guardian. When you click on that, you'll just scroll down, and then you'll see the Supporting Your Loved One book that you could just click on.
Okay. Thank you. That's new and I didn't know that. So they changed it. I'm glad. Okay, next slide. The essence of your conservatorship is it mandates medication. We have various treatment programs in Los Angeles and Orange County, but the only one that can actually mandate medication is your LPS conservatorship. And that's vital because the brain needs the chemicals so that neurons can connect properly. So that's really helpful. The other programs, they help to encourage your loved one to take the medications, and they're very good about doing that. But a lot of people, it would be easier to tell a brick wall to move and get response from that than to tell your loved one they have to take the medications. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Next slide. Norwalk Mental Health Court Department A and B is in Norwalk. Oh, Olga, that's yours. I'm sorry. I thought that was.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay, Gail.
Yeah.
So yes, so all of our LPS conservatorship matters, they're heard at the Norwalk Mental Health Court, and they're heard in it's located there at 12720 Norwalk Boulevard in Norwalk. And all of our LPS matters are heard in Department A and Department B. So the judges presiding in those particular departments are Judge Scott Herron and Judge Renee Gilbertson.
Thank you. Next, yeah.
So the criteria for LPS conservatorship. So the patient must have a serious mental illness, for instance, schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, bipolar disorder, major depression, chronic substance abuse because of a mental illness, and the individual is unable to provide for their personal safety or necessary medical care. Although this one, I will point out that this is part of the new definition of grave disability under Senate Bill 43 that will be taking effect next year, January 1st of 2026. And the individual must be gravely disabled and unable to provide for their basic needs of food, clothing, and shelter.
Next slide.
Olga?
Yes, so as I mentioned, here we have the new grave disability definition that will be taking effect next year in January. And grave disability here is defined as a condition in which a person, as a result of their mental health disorder, a severe substance use disorder, or a co-occurring mental health disorder and a severe substance use disorder, is unable to provide for their basic personal needs for food, clothing, and shelter, as well as personal safety or necessary medical care.
Olga, I have a question. If a person just has substance abuse usage and not a mental illness, does that still qualify them as gravely disabled?
Yes, yes, it would qualify them, especially with this new expanded definition that will be taking effect of next year in January.
Okay. Thank you. Presently, if I can just add, presently, until January 1st, it's only they cannot provide for their food, clothing, or shelter. They don't care about the substance abuse or if they have diabetes and they're not taking care of it, unless you can equate that to a health risk. Okay.
Right, because the definition as it stands now for grave disability is just a condition in which a person, as a result of a mental health disorder, is unable to provide for their basic personal needs for food, clothing, and shelter, and they're unable or unwilling to accept voluntary treatment.
Mhm. Okay, thank you. There are two types of the LPS conservatorship. It's the conservatorship of the person, which is most likely the one that you will get if you're getting a conservatorship granted for your loved one. The doctor at the hospital or the jail is the one who initiates the conservatorship of the person. And basically, when you're in class, what is that? Most information. Oh, most of this information in class pertains to the conservatorship of the person. The conservatorship of the estate, the doctor does not initiate that. You can ask the public guardian if they can help you get it, or during the year, if you find out, oh my goodness, they have debts, they have this, they have that, you can go back to court and request the court grant you the conservatorship of the estate. And usually this helps you with school loans, debts, criminal court cases, anything else that's going on. Sometimes you need that. When you refer to estate, it's not their $1 billion estate. It's sometimes the estate refers to money that they owe. Now, the public guardian, if they get the conservatorship, they get it of the person and the estate. But generally, unless you need it of the estate, it's just the person for you. Okay, next slide. A succession of the conservatorship. The succession can be changed from the public guardian to a responsible person anytime during the year. And a lot of people feel like once they get the conservatorship as of, when they first get it, that if they don't take it and the public guardian has it, the public guardian has it for the full year. That's not necessarily true. Excuse me, I'm hearing noise in the background. Nobody should be here. But if you are the conservator, then you 2 months down the road, you go, I don't think I can handle this. You can give it back to the public guardian, and it takes like maybe 7 to 10 days to get that through. It doesn't cost you anything. All you have to do is let the court, the superior court, know that you would like a succession of the conservatorship to go back to the public guardian, or if they have it, that you want it. And the court normally grants your request. Now, if you are asking for the conservatorship and your loved one says, I don't want my mom or my dad to be my conservator, the court generally honors what the conservatee would like. So you have to kind of make sure your loved one's going to want you to be conservator. And this is really important because that's the person that they work with the most. If you are the conservator, it is a bit of work, even though you're limited on what you can do. But when the public guardian is the conservator, be respectful of them. They're handling not one person, but 50 to 75. And it's very difficult. So if you call and start rattling off and having a conversation for 45 minutes, honestly, they don't have that time. If you have a question, it's best to email them, and then they can answer your question or get back to you. And the days that they are seeing their clients, they're not going to be answering your questions because their client is their most important person that they're dealing with at that time. And we're lucky in Los Angeles because our public guardians are well educated, they're wonderful, and they love family involvement as long as it's productive, not where they're just kind of complaining and you're not doing this and you're not doing that. No, they'll shut you out and you don't want that to happen. Next slide. Who should be the conservator? There are pros and cons of each. The public guardian is able to place a person in a state-approved facility a little bit easier than you can. The public guardian, actually, they have a list and they have to use a state-approved facility. If you are the conservator, hospitals are supposed to contact the intensive care division and they make a suggestion of several places that you could go to. You have the power to go and visit those facilities and determine which is best suited for your loved one. You know your loved one better than anybody, and you can say, yes, this is good, or no, that's not good, but you better have a good reason. If you say, well, it hasn't been painted recently, you can forget that. Less stress, that's the other pro, is if your loved one likes to push you around, less stress for the family member. And if you have a hard time saying no to your loved one, the public guardian's probably better to go. They're very good at no. The negative is you have less involvement with the recovery process. You don't have communication with the doctor. And if your loved one says, I don't want my family involved in any of this, the public guardian doesn't have a choice. They cannot relay information back to you. You also have no control of the medication. But if there is a problem and you're noting it, you can ask the public guardian to request a medication review. And we've had doctors that do some weird things. We had, I think, the one in Silver Lake Hospital, he wrote 13 psychotropics for one patient. And I called the CEO and the CEO took care of that problem immediately. So there are things that you need to know, you would like to know. And if your loved one will allow you to know, it will be helpful. But work to establish a good working relationship with a public guardian. Keep in mind, if they've got 50 people, and then the relatives of maybe 25 of those, that's a lot to deal with. So be respectful of them. Next slide.
Gail, I wanted to cut in here and just add a couple of things. There are some newer clerks here in the Orange County courts. And for those conservators that find that it's just too overwhelming for them, or for whatever reasons decide to turn it back over to the public guardian's office here in Orange County, we've been having some trouble with that. And I won't belabor the problem, but if anybody in this meeting is from Orange County and you try to turn it back over to the public guardian's office through the courts and have any problems at all, please contact me, because I can get you around the roadblock. I'll just leave it as such. The other thing is that for those that have somebody on conservatorship that's dual diagnosed, meaning they have substance abuse in addition to their mental health issues, the public guardian's office basically sends the money directly to them. So if your son or daughter on conservatorship were to contact the public guardian's office and said, hey, I need a new pair of shoes, I need $40 to get a new pair of shoes, that money is sent to them. So you want to keep that in mind. And I don't know how the public guardian, but I've talked to several of the deputies both in Los Angeles and Orange County, and if they are told that they need a new pair of shoes, they send the money for that. And so you might want to keep that in mind. And I don't know how we're going to ever get around this problem, but Olga, if you want to comment on that, please do.
Well, with LA County Public Guardian Office, whenever a family member is no longer able to go ahead and carry out their duties as conservator, what they could do is just write a letter to the Norwalk courthouse, explaining to the judge the reasons for why they're no longer able to assume the responsibility. And what the judge will do is they'll go ahead and order Public Guardian Office to conduct what's called a successor investigation. And then we'll go ahead and investigate and look into the matter, see if another family member may be willing and able to assume the responsibility. And if not, then we could recommend for Public Guardian Office to take over as the conservator.
Okay. Thank you. Next slide.
But Olga, when the
ahead.
public guardian is a conservator, they are also of the estate. So the money is not sent directly to the client. It's sent to y'all. Is that correct?
Yes, so once we become conservator, it is over person and estate, and then this way we could receive that conservatee's benefits to use towards their care and personal needs.
Okay. All right, next slide. Oh, wait, did we do this
This
one?
is yours. No, this is
Yeah, okay. Should I be the conservator? If you choose to be the conservator, the benefit is you have direct contact with the doctor when you need it. Usually, most everybody will go through the social worker, but if you need to speak with that doctor, especially on medications, you can do that. That is your right by law. You can also reject inappropriate treatment facilities, medication, and treatment places. Your powers as a conservator is to approve or disapprove treatment, placement, and medication. So after ICD has gone ahead and they give several suggestions for facilities for your loved one to go to, you can go tour those. And you can say, I think this one is good or that one isn't. And I'm going to give an example, which I don't know if I gave it yesterday or not. There was a young man. He was mute schizophrenic. And when they did the evaluation, they kind of thought that he was very low functioning. One of the facilities was specifically for low functioning people. That would have freaked him out because he was brilliant, extremely brilliant. The brain works. It's that frontal lobe that does the processing that's kind of messed up, and we're trying to get it cleared up. A second facility, he had a substance abuse problem. They're selling drugs across the street. That was not going to do it. And every time you would go out in the yard, you're looking at them selling the drugs. The third one, they were packed in like sardines. I mean, I've never seen them so crowded in a facility. And he was the kind that if you were 6 feet near him, you're in my space. Why are you in my space? That would not have worked for him either. So they gave other facilities. The family went and checked him out, and they found one that was going to work pretty well for him. So that is really good. If the doctor is giving them medications that are doing bad things for them, like Haldol can sometimes cut off the throat, the breathing, and cause other problems, you can say no to these. Now, you have to work with the doctor. You can't call the doctor and say, okay, I want you to put him on this medication. The doctor's going to say, you're not the doctor. But if you call and say, I've been reading about this medication, what do you think if we try a little bit of it, and I will give you the feedback, what the results that I'm seeing in my loved one? They are more inclined to work with you in that situation rather than you try to boss them around and tell them what to do. They'd like to know where you got your medical degree. The negatives are the conservatee manipulates you. And if you cannot say no, it's not a good idea to be a conservator. Also, the hospitals will push you around and tell you, okay, we're going to discharge them. We had UCLA tell a family, okay, we're going to discharge him to the house. We've applied for an IMD, an Institute for Mental Disease. That's what it is. And we'll let you know when a bed becomes available. If they had taken that person home, and they're not qualified for treating that person, first of all, when that bed became available, he couldn't go because you have to go from a lockdown to a lockdown. Hospital and jails are locked down. IMDs are locked down. If you are not in the hospital or in the jail, you cannot go to that IMD. You have to go from a lockdown to a lockdown. The hospital knew what they were doing. They just wanted to get rid of the patient. And that's very common. With the public guardian, even them, they'll try and push them around, but they're tougher than us. If you have problems, don't hesitate to call and ask for help. All right, next slide.
Okay, so the liability for the conservator. So according to Welfare and Institutions Code 5358.1, the conservator is not by law liable either civilly or criminally for anything the conservatee may or may not do. However, this immunity is generally based on the assumption that the conservator has complied with the court order and has ensured that the conservatee is following the recommended treatment plan as set by the treatment team. And the conservator is also not financially responsible for the conservatee's debts. So in addition, any care payments that should be made to placement facilities, the conservator is to pay using solely the conservatee's benefits, their income, for instance, SSI or Social Security or VA benefits.
All right. I'd like to give an example on that one, the law about being liable. Basically, you are not liable, but when the person becomes conserved, they tend to temporarily take their right to drive a car away. They can actually get that back if you are the conservator. If the public guardian is a conservator, they're not going to take on that responsibility. But let's say they have the right to drive the car, or they don't have it, and you give them the keys to the car and you say, could you go get some milk for us and bring it back? And they have a car accident. You are liable. Now, if they took the keys without your permission and had an accident, you are not liable. Okay, next slide.
So the rights and responsibilities of the LPS conservator. As conservator, you're going to be awarded with the power to approve or disapprove of all medications, treatment, and placement. That means that if your doctor wants to prescribe a medication and you don't feel it's appropriate for your conservatee, you can actually overrule him. But keep in mind that it has to be a very legitimate reason for overruling him, such as, I'm sorry, doctor, but Haldol makes my conservatee's tongue swell up and it cuts off his airways. Can we talk about other medications in this case? And in such a way, you're working with the doctor to come up with an appropriate medication. But if you just don't like the medication, or your conservatee says, gee, I don't like this medication, and so that you're telling the doctor you can't prescribe it, that doctor can go back to the court and ask the judge to relieve you as conservator and have your conservatorship end up with the public guardian. So you always want to work with your doctor. But again, you have complete say-so over all medications, the treatment plan, and placement.
I'd like to add on this.
Please do.
You have the right to fire the doctor too.
True.
We had a case where the girl was pretty ill, having some serious problems, and the doctor had her on the wrong medication. And it is trial and error to find the right one that's going to work for your loved one. And he told the mother, you know, you're just being too aggressive. All medications are the same. Well, she found another doctor that put her on another medication, and it was a world of difference. The girl's finally retired from working, actually, and did a great job. I mean, she got her life back. But that firing that doctor and getting another one was a good idea. Now, if you're trying to tell the doctor that we're only going to do holistic medications, you're going to be fired, you know, real quick. So you have to work with the doctors, kind of, you know, back and forth. Be respectful of each other. Next slide.
So the conservators have the right, various rights actually, the right to speak directly with the treating doctor. So if you're seeing a problem, let's say that your loved one's in a treatment facility and you're having questions about the treatment and so forth, or the medications, you have the right to direct those questions directly with the treating doctor. They can't deny that. I think somewhere in this presentation, we're going to share with you how you can go about doing that. You also have the legal right to apply for your loved one's SSI, SSDI, Medi-Cal, Medicare, and VA benefits. You can have private insurance, Medi-Cal, and Medicare all at the same time. When I heard this, I thought, no, that's not right. And I asked Gail about that, and she said, yes, but you can have all of them, but the private insurance then would have to pay off whatever it is that they're going to pay off. And then if there's some part of that bill that they're not going to pay, you could ask them to put that in writing so you can then supply that to the Medicare or Medi-Cal office, and then they will go ahead and pay off the remainder of the bill. So as I say, Gail has always been my mentor. I learned so much from her, but you do have that right. Next slide.
Oh, let me just say on that, that insurance problem, they're county programs, and many times your private insurance will pay for the county programs, but if they don't, you just have to have it in writing that they won't pay for it. So then Medi-Cal and Medicare will. And I'm going to go back up to, because I had a call today and I thought it was kind of interesting. On SSI and SSDI, when you are applying, but remember, don't use the word applying with Social Security, you would like them to help you fill out the form. But basically, when you're talking with them, they have records of your loved one's work history. You don't have to look it up and say, oh my gosh, what did he do? And if they worked way back in their early 20s and they're in their 30s and they worked enough, Social Security will let you know they are eligible for SSDI. If you have records that they were ill 2 years before you're talking to them now, 2 years before this, and they are eligible for SSDI, chances are they can put them on Medicare at this time. SSDI and Medicare is a package. SSI and Medi-Cal is basically a package goodie. The SSI and SSDI is income coming in, money, and the insurance is your Medi-Cal, Medicare, and that sort of thing. So when you call Social Security, ask them to check to see if they are eligible for SSDI. And if they are, then you want them to help you fill out the forms for that. And if you have proof that they've been ill for over 2 years, you can do that. If you don't have any of that, then you get the Medicare, and 2 years from now, mark your calendar, call Social Security and say, I believe they're eligible for Medicare now. And it's done deal. And so they'll give it to you right away. All right, next slide. Insurance. And we just kind of went over a lot of that. You can have all those insurances at the same time. TRICARE is basically military. If they've served in the military, they may have TRICARE. Retired, they definitely would. Whatever, but you can have all of these. The more the merrier, actually. For county programs, and I just mentioned it earlier, your private insurance is requested to pay, but if they refuse, just get it in writing, and then Medi-Cal will cover the cost. Next slide. Jim?
I missed that. The California Welfare and Institutions Code 5358.5 states that as conservator, you have the right to hospitalize your loved one when you deem it necessary. Do not wait for the person to decompensate to harm or to self or others. You want to contact the deputy for emergency outreach and triage at 213-738-4924. With that being said, in Orange County, you would call OC Links and they would help facilitate that for you. But you do have that right. You know, it's amazing to force somebody against their will to go into a hospital or into a jail cell or anything like that. You have to be with law enforcement or a conservator. So you have incredible rights. And remember that our goal is to help our loved one to stabilize and to ultimately, hopefully, get them off of conservatorship so that we can, reinstate those rights. And some of the rights are actually going to be, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, they'll be reinstalled during the conservatorship itself. But anyway, next slide.
I'd just like to add something, if we can go back.
Sure.
All right. The one thing, if a person goes off their medication, don't wait the whole year. You've wasted your conservatorship for them to start taking their medications. The hospital presently is the only place that can force the medication. If they're an IMD or treatment facility, they can't force it, but usually people will take it. So if there is a problem and they go off their medication, your goal is to keep them in a forward trajectory of recovery. And if you're sitting there waiting for them to become harm to self and harm to others or get really, really sick, you are not doing your job. So you want to have them transported back. And we're going to give you the law on this because you have the right to have them transported back, which is really important. And so that they can get back on the medicine. The sooner you do it, sometimes they go to the hospital ER, they pop a pill, and they're good to go. The longer you wait, they might have to do a little R&R in the hospital for the weekend or something like that. Then they're good to go. And they get the idea very quickly. I think I better take this medicine. But the longer you wait, now they're stuck in the hospital, taking up a bed, waiting for an IMD bed to become available. So please don't wait. When people call me and it's been like 6 months and oh my gosh, they're hearing voices, they're doing this and that, and they're the conservator, I get a little upset because they have not done what they should have done to keep them on the road for recovery. And basically, once your loved one is under the conservatorship, they are gravely disabled, which is the reason you can get them back in the hospital. They are considered gravely disabled. Nobody can say they're not until they go to court and remove that. So if they're trying to say, well, they're not gravely disabled, the court has deemed they are, and that person is in contempt of court. Okay, next slide. The code 5358.5, when you're using it, you must have a copy of your conservatorship paper, a copy of the law, which I think is the next slide, and you write a written request to transport the conservatee to the hospital. It's the police that will come and transport them to the hospital. And you have that power. If there's a number that you can call in LA, I think there's one in Jim gave it to you for Orange County. But if you're not doing that, go to the watch commander at the police department. They're not attorneys. That's why you give them a copy of the law and your written request what you would like, and then they can come and pick your loved one up. But don't wait until they're ready to whack somebody. Do it long before that. Okay, next slide. Or Olga, do you want to add anything to that?
Um, no, not, I don't really have anything to add to that.
Okay. All right, next slide. Oh, that is the law. It says when a conservatee is placed into a facility pursuant to this chapter and leaves the facility without the approval or something else, they're stopping their medicine. Basically, the conservator may take the conservatee into custody and return him to the facility or remove him to the county designated treatment facility. The conservator, at his discretion, may request a peace offer to detain the conservatee and return such person to the facility which he was placed, or to transfer him to the county designated treatment facility pursuant to section 783. You don't have to read all that part. But basically, if they've left a facility and they're off their meds, transport them to the hospital because they can get them back on their meds. So that's basically the law that you're giving them. And when the police come out, they come in plain clothes and they're supposed to travel in unmarked vehicles. Don't count on that. Sometimes they come with the police cars. So be it. Just get them in the hospital. Next slide. The Welfare and Institution Code, by court decree, they are gravely disabled. And that's where I'm saying nobody can say they're not, because they will be in contempt of court. You request the police transport. We kind of went over all this. The hospitals where the medication can be forced, and as conservator, you are authorized to detain and treat. Olga, you want to mention that? And I think that's the next slide too.
The authorization to detain and treat, you mean?
Yeah, I think go to the next slide, Araceli, if you would, please. There you go. All yours.
Yes, so this form, the authorization to detain and treat, the ADT. So this is a form that either whether it's the public guardian office serving as the conservator or a family member, a private conservator who's serving, this form needs to be provided to the treatment facility wherever a conservatee is placed, or if the conservatee is already in a treatment facility and decompensates and needs to be hospitalized, then this form is to be sent to the hospital where they're sending the conservatee to. And basically this ADT is just indicating that the court has granted, whether it's public guardian office or the private conservator, with the authority to have this conservatee treated for the condition causing grave disability, which would be their mental illness. So here the private conservator would just indicate the name of the treatment facility and the address that this ADT is being sent to, whether the authorization is to treat the conservatee or the authorization is to detain and treat a conservatee. The second one would be checked off if the conservatee is actually going to like a locked IMD setting or a locked skilled nursing facility where authorization is needed to have that conservatee detained in one of those types of treatment settings. So here, the conservator would just indicate the conservatee's, their last name, their first name. They would indicate the court case number as well. And here, power 6, 7, and 8A. These are the powers. For instance, power 8, for instance, power 6 has to do with placing the conservatee in a locked nursing or residential facility. Power 7 has to do with placing that conservatee in a locked acute care psychiatric hospital. And power 8.8 is to require that the conservatee receive psychotropic medication, so antipsychotic medication. So yes, this is an ADT that we send over to the facility whenever a conservatee is placed in whether it's a boarding care, a skilled nursing facility, an IMD, or a state hospital, or they're getting hospitalized because they've decompensated in their treatment facility. So this is a form that the treatment facility contacts the private conservator or the public guardian office requesting this form. to show that the court has granted us as the conservator the authority to treat the conservatee for their condition that's causing grave disability.
And I have a question because I'm sorry if my attention drifted for a moment, but who issues the authorization to detain and treat form?
Yes, so if a private conservator is appointed via conservator, then it's that private conservator's responsibility to go ahead and fill out one of these ADTs and send it over to the treatment facility or
Where would
the
they obtain
hospital.
the form? Would it be in your office there?
Yes, so this form is actually included in that booklet that we provide private conservators. So that booklet called Supporting Your Loved One, the 10th edition. This is one of the forms that's included in that particular packet that private conservators can go ahead and make copies of.
Thank you, Olga.
Oh, that's wonderful. You guys really updated that booklet. I'm going to download it because I haven't seen it. And it's been updated.
So I'll share with you a little bit about CalAble. Don't want to get too deep into it, but primarily how I personally became aware of CalAble and the services that they offer came up at a time that my son was placed into, or conservatee, let's put it that way, was placed into a board and care that was one of the best I've ever seen. And they consequently were more expensive. And the amount of funds that I got from Social Security weren't really sufficient enough to cover that, and I couldn't get the amount raised. So I discovered that I could open up a CalAble account for my conservatee. And in that, I can actually take my personal funds and put it into that CalAble account. And then from the CalAble account, I could have those funds designated to go directly to the board and care. Excuse me, what did I just say? Board and care, to actually take care of him. I could supplement the monthly fees, is what I'm trying to say. So you might look at that. There's the homepage. You can just go to calable.com.ca. It's calable.ca.gov. Didn't get my sleep last night, excuse me, folks. This page lists the different disability-related expenses that can be paid for without losing government funding, and that's the really important part of all of this. So next slide, please.
Well, let me just say that's for if you're under SSI. If you're under SSDI, you probably don't need it. If you're under SSI, you don't want to add anything more on your 2,000 unless you're doing it through CalAble, because they will deduct from you a 2-to-1 ratio. So you don't want that to happen. Like if they're in a facility that's $1,200 and you substitute $200, Social Security will drop down $100 from what they were paying beforehand. Now you have to pay even more. So use CalAble if they're under SSI. SSDI, you don't have that problem.
Right. Thank you, Cal.
Okay, next slide.
So you want to use the CalAble funds, especially if under SSI. And again, it applies to all the things listed on the page. Assistive technology, it could be a laptop computer, so forth. Things that you wouldn't normally be able to spend monies on for SSI, but you can actually supplement that so that it's more affordable. Gail, anything?
Nope, I think you've covered it. Thank you. Olga, you want to add anything?
No, nothing to add.
Okay.
Thank you. Next slide. Here we go.
LPS Conservatorship of the estate. If you need it of the estate because you have debts and things like that, you can negotiate with the creditors the debts. If there's money that can be paid off, sometimes you can pay them back on 10 cents, 25 cents on the dollar, but be sure that they write that this has been paid in full and they give it back, so that they don't come back later and say, well, you owe more money. You don't want that to happen. You can handle your criminal court cases. If they have school loans, you can acquire a waiver for the school loans, and that's good for 3 years. If they don't make X amount of money, above the poverty level, then at the end of 3 years, those loans are completely dismissed. So that's kind of a good thing to have. credit cards. You can cancel credit cards, which is really good. I don't know about you, but you'll have a credit card, they'll send you something else and say, sign this, and for $3,000, just sign here and you get this credit. Then you get another one that sends, sign here, you get 5,000 credit. You can cancel all those. And if they don't, well, canceling the cards is not a problem. But if there's a debt and they're not going to negotiate with you on that debt, don't worry about it. In 3 years, they'll put a judgment on it, but in 3 years, that judgment is gone. When you go to court and you get your conservatorship, especially that of the estate, ask that the judge appoint an attorney for you to have, should you have any questions, legal or otherwise, during the year. Those attorneys are pretty good. They're pretty knowledgeable of LPS conservatorship, and you can call them anytime you want, and they will help you with whatever the problem is. Usually they also help on renewing the conservatorship. They'll kind of give you guidance on that. But you kind of need to know the person you're dealing with. With Social Security, they can help you with that. They do a lot, really. Olga, you want to add to this? Because y'all do the estate.
Well, with LPS conservatorship over the estate, yes, the conservator is able to go ahead and marshal all of that conservatee's income and assets, and go ahead and manage all their benefits, SSI, Social Security, VA benefits. But it's not necessary for the private conservator to be appointed over the estate if the conservatee, for instance, only has a modest income of SSI and Social Security. That could be simply managed as a representative payee.
Right. Oh, by the way, you don't have to have a conservatorship to do CalAble. So that's open for everybody.
Right.
Next slide.
Olga?
Yes, so here conservator must have court approval, for instance. So for all invasive medical treatment, so whenever a conservatee needs some kind of invasive medical procedure, LPS conservatorship only grants the conservator authority over mental health treatment. So not to go ahead and authorize invasive medical treatment. A separate court order is needed for that. And that's why it's important for private conservators to inform the court of all medical problems. So yes, so any kind of invasive medical procedure that a conservatee should need, the private conservator is responsible for notifying the court of that in order to go ahead and petition the court for authority to be able to authorize that type of medical treatment. And with the LPS conservatorship, no experimental research is allowed. Any type of experimental procedure that would be needed would also require a separate court order.
Olga, can you elaborate on dental? That's one question that a lot of people tend to have.
I'm sorry, did you say dental?
Yes, dental, like when they're giving Novocaine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for instance, something like tooth extraction, I mean, that's considered invasive. So if a conservatee should need a tooth extraction, the conservator is responsible for notifying the court of the needed procedure to petition the court for authority to be able to authorize that conservatee receive the tooth extraction that's needed.
And that's where if you have an attorney assigned to you, you can call the attorney and they take care of all this. So you don't even have to worry about notifying the court because the attorney will do it for you.
So Olga, may I ask a question then? Let's stay with the tooth extraction for an example. Let's say that tooth is really hurting the conservatee and it needs to come out because it's not savable, and it needs to come out. He's in pain. Would that qualify a emergency situation where he could go ahead and extract it without first contacting? Because I can't imagine, going through a bureaucratic system while they're in pain.
Well, if the conservatee is in a lot of pain and, whether it's a hospital or a treatment setting that is notifying the private conservator that the conservatee is in a lot of pain, and it's, the key here is that it has to be an emergency. So if it's an emergency where the conservatee is in a lot of pain and this is a matter that just cannot wait, it needs to be documented as an emergency. And then the hospitals would just go ahead and follow their own emergency protocols. So, so when we say when it's an emergency, yes, the hospitals follow their own protocols for emergency. But if this is something that's urgent and not an emergency and can wait, then that's when the private conservator should notify the court of the needed procedure in order to have a hearing set in court for medical consent for that conservator to receive the authority from the court to authorize the treatment.
Thank you. Olga, this is yours.
Yes, so medical emergency. So all non-emergency invasive procedures must be approved by Department A or B. So yes, so as I mentioned, whenever a procedure, some kind of medical procedure is needed and it's not an emergency, then there are forms that the private conservator needs to have the doctors complete, and these forms sent into the courthouse to notify the court of the needed procedure. This way, a hearing can be heard in whether it's Department A or B for medical consent for the conservator to receive the authority to authorize that needed medical procedure. And as mentioned before, no experimental treatment is permitted on a conservatee. A separate court order would be needed for that. And request all medical issues to be approved by Department A or B. So yes, it's important to go ahead and notify the court whenever some type of medical procedure is needed, because a conservator cannot just simply authorize medical treatment without court authority. Unless, of course, it's an emergency situation where the hospitals would follow their own protocol, and then something like that can't wait, and it's considered an emergency.
So Olga, back to the two things. What I'm hearing is that the emergency would be if it was a danger to the individual to delay the extraction.
Yes, exactly.
It would not be a danger, so therefore it's just a matter of, I guess, trying to put something on it to deaden the pain and then go down to the Department of A or B in the courts?
Yes, so if it's a danger to the conservatee and it's an emergency, then yes, the procedure, the tooth extraction or whatever the medical procedure is, it can be done, if it's emergent. But if it's something that can wait and it's not considered an emergency, then yes, the private conservator would need to go ahead and obtain the necessary paperwork from the doctors, have that submitted to the court, and have the matter actually heard at the courthouse. And for the conservator to receive the authority from the court to authorize the medical procedure.
Is there, have the courts put into writing what constitutes an emergency?
Have they put it into writing? Well, it's whenever the hospital notifies the conservator that of a specific procedure that's needed, as the conservator, one should be asking, is the procedure an emergency? Because if it is an emergency and it can't wait, then they could go ahead and proceed by just following the protocol. I'm not exactly sure if they put it into writing, but just to go ahead and make the private conservators aware, if it is emergent, they can have just the hospitals follow their own protocol for that.
Okay, thank you. I'm not going to keep going on that, but
Yeah.
I can ask more questions, but thank you very much. I appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Olga, a shot of Novocaine, is that considered invasive?
A shot of Novocaine. Well, anything that's anything that's invasive entering the body is considered so that would be considered invasive. Any kind of shot, injection, that's considered invasive.
Okay, thank you. Next slide. Oh, The conservator has direct contact with the treating doctor. That's under your California Welfare and Institutions Code 5328.1. Sometimes some of the treatment facilities will say, well, you don't talk with the doctor. You have the right for the prognosis, medication, and side effects of medications and to have direct contact with the treating doctor. So don't let anybody tell you you can't. That's the law, and you can go look it up. It's pretty easy, and you can work with that. If the doctor refuses to speak with you and you're in a treatment, they're in a treatment facility, it's kind of hard to change doctors at that point because they don't work at that facility. But contact the emergency outreach and triage. That's their number. You can contact me if you're not getting satisfaction, and we will get the message to the doctor right away. Olga, you want to add to that?
Let's see. Uh, yes, so the private conservator, you know, the private conservator needs to go ahead and act in the best interest of the conservatee. So they do need to be advocating for the conservatee, speaking with the treatment team, you know, having questions. If there's any kind of concerns with medications, side effects that the conservatee may be experiencing, the conservator needs to go ahead and consult with the treatment team and have a conversation with the treatment team about, you know, whether the conservatee can be switched probably to another medication that's comparable, where they're not experiencing, you know, these sort of side effects. But it is the responsibility of the conservator to be advocating for the conservatee.
Jim?
I think you've nailed it. You know, I don't even know here in Orange County who to call in this sort of situations, because sometimes I've had families share that they just were not able to get a hold of the doctor.
I'd call director of behavioral health because they should be able to take care of that immediately.
Well, I agree. I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, next slide. Criminal court cases. When your loved one has done a crime or you come on the scene and you've got the LPS conservatorship, and by the way, if they're in jail, it tends to be easier to get the LPS conservatorship presently when they're in jail than it is when they're in the hospital. Because what's happening is hospitals are refusing to do the LPS conservatorship. Department of Mental Health has certified the hospital to be an LPS conservatorship facility, and they're kind of calling the shots. Department of Mental Health says, well, if we push them to do that, then what will happen, that they'll say that they're not going to do it, that they're just shutting their doors on all mental health. Well, what's happening, hospital after hospital is now saying, we're not doing conservatorships. Why should one do it when the others aren't and bear all the burden of all this? This is ridiculous. And we're having people hospitalized 15, 20 times. That's unacceptable. So this part I get kind of angry about. But when they are in jail, and they're going to be in jail for a little bit of time, contact the treating doctor at the jail. Give them a copy of that history, symptoms, and gravely disabled, and ask them to please initiate the LPS conservatorship. Now, with the public defender, you ask the public defender to request the DMH court linkage program, that's their number, to be involved in the case. And if you have that LPS paper that I sent out or the guide for conservatorships, these numbers are all in that resource section at the back of the paper. Ask the public defender to request a jail or misdemeanor, the misdemeanor center for a jail diversion program. What that does, they will put them in a program, and it's either 18 to 24 months. And if the person completes that program, then their case can be considered either dismissed or dropped down to like a parking ticket, depending on what they did. But basically, that's what they will do if they complete it. The LPS conservatorship is like an insurance policy, because if they're in the program and they go off the medication, then you can get them back in the hospital so they can continue the program. So that's one thing that you really would be very important for you to do. Also, if it's a criminal court, they have the first right for placement, for treatment. They have first right for everything. I mean, but they will listen to you and they will accept your suggestions. You still have a lot of power, but it's kind of you work together relationship on that. Olga, you want to add anything to this, or Jim?
No.
No.
Okay, next slide. When you have a court case, and people get very confused about this, each court case is only looking for specific things. Your criminal court case, and sometimes when you have a mentally ill person in court, you can have 3 cases coming up. The criminal case, they're only looking for, did the person do the crime? That's all they want to know. The second one would be competency case. Now, the judge from the criminal case say, we want them to go to the mental health court in Hollywood and have a competency hearing, have a forensic evaluation is what they say. And that forensic evaluation is, are they competent to understand how to help in their case? So that court case, the competency case, they're only looking to see if the person is competent. If they're not competent, then they put them in a program to help them to become competent. Once they're competent, they go back to the criminal court case. Did they or did they not do the crime? So you don't want to get these confused. The LPS conservatorship, if you're getting the doctor to do the LPS conservatorship, all they are looking for is, does the person have a serious mental illness, and is he gravely disabled? That's all they're looking for. And people get them confused. They think, well, competency, they should be giving them the LPS. That's not the case. So I put this down specifically so that you would understand what each case is looking for. And if you're going to the criminal case, you're not going to say, well, they're gravely disabled, they can't provide for this and that. That has nothing to do with their criminal case. Likewise, the LPS case has nothing to do with the criminal case. So that's just a little bit to help you keep those 3 cases separate. Olga?
Let's see. So yes, when it comes to competency, so if the person is not able to help their public defender in their own defense, typically these individuals are placed in settings like state hospitals, where they not only receive the mental health treatment, but they also receive competency training in order to bring them to competency. And then this way they're able to be remanded back to court to face the charges that they have against them.
And if they put them in those hospitals, in the state hospital, and you don't have the LPS, ask the treating doctor to initiate it, because sometimes they will put them in the hospital, they become competent, then they go back to jail and wait for the case, they go off the medicines, and it becomes a round robin. And if you have the conservatorship, you can also work with the treating doctor to find a medication that works for them. And we will be getting to medications, I think, shortly. All right, Jim?
Gail, I think you've done a really excellent job on that. I really have nothing to add to it.
Okay, thank you. Next.
So possible treatment programs, so as a conservator, you're dealing with your loved one. You know very well their mental health status and the strengths and the weaknesses. And one of the things that you're going to have to determine is what sort of a treatment program might your conservatee best be suitable for. So prior to LPS conservatorship, then of course you'd want to consider LPS conservatorship, and our Saturday classes teach you that sort of thing. or it's AOT. I recently had a family that their loved one is in a designated hospital here, and the doctor just insisted that he was not going to start the conservatorship process. And so I then introduced her to AOT, and they are moving forward with that. Says by law you cannot have LPS and AOT. So you're either going to be qualifying for one or the other. If you cannot obtain a conservatorship, and if you are not eligible for LPS, then you're eligible for the AOT program, and vice versa. So in care court, there's this, it addresses the schizophrenia spectrum. Here in Orange County, I'm being told that that's soon going to include bipolar at some time down the road, not too far down the road. The home team, it would be in LA, is the homeless and outpatient program. And then FSP, which is a full service program where your loved one can go during the day, get counseling and that type of thing. And then there's also the jail diversion programs that are out there. All of these are different areas that can be very, very helpful to your loved one and their needs. And as conservatorship, you're going to have to best kind of reach out and explore these and see what's going to be the best option for your loved one. Gail, would you like to add to that?
We're lucky because years ago, you only had LPS conservatorship, and these programs have been coming in one by one. And the people that run them really do an amazing job. They're trained, they know how to talk with your loved one, and they're very patient, a lot more patient than I am, but they really do a good job. So we're very fortunate in that regard. Unfortunately, LPS conservatorship should be given a lot more than what it is, because if the person doesn't have any reality, any ability for reasoning, it's very, very difficult, if not impossible, to convince them to take medications. And they need the medications to help them to be able to think. Just like if you have a bad infection, you need an antibiotic to help clear it up. It would be along the same lines. Okay, next slide.
Medications. It's your responsibility as the conservator to know all your medications that are being prescribed for your conservatee. You want to know what their side effects are, but what is the basic dosage range that's safe when taken. So to research the medications, you can go to drugs.com. I love this. This is a site that is available both on the internet as well as an app. Gail added to that. ChatGPT is another way for you to utilize the internet to look up medications. All of this, whenever I, as a conservator, am dealing with medications for my conservatee, and over a period of time, medications change, I will go to drugs.com, and there's such a plethora of information there, and I print it all out, and I keep everything combined in a notebook. So you open it up, and I have the medications, and every medication, the side effects, you name it, it's all there. And I find that very helpful when I have to go back in and speak with the psychiatrist regarding the conservatee's needs and what's working and so forth. It's fantastic. So again, what medication works, and of course we can refer back to the journal. We want to keep notes on that, and which do not necessarily work for another med. So again, write all your information down in your journal, date it, and the goal is to find the best medication for clarity of mind with the least amount of side effects. We don't want somebody on a medication if they're just exhausted all the time, or it's causing other side effects that are extremely problematic for them. So we try to find the one that's going to work the best with the least side effects. Gail, do you want to add?
We'll go to the next slide because I think that will.
I think that's where you want to probably jump in. So guideline for medication, you want to use the scientific method. If a doctor's going to just put 4 or 5 psychotropics, or prescribed 4 or 5 psychotropics, you're not going to know which one's really helping him. And then you may have some that are not helping him or her. And, but there's all the extra side effects that they're having to deal with. And so the best way to find out what's working is, again, the scientific method allows you change one variable at a time. If you're having side effects and you change one medication, did that resolve the case and so forth? Or did that improve the clarity of mind and that type of thing? So you want to find the one medication that works best and then add, if necessary, after one medication, at a time. Know what each medication is for. Again, drugs.com will help you with that, or Chat GPT, I guess it's called, as Gail. She's really into that, I assure you. She keeps trying to get me to learn more about that. So anyway, next slide. There's a formulary for medications. Gail told me this, and I was so surprised that a doctor actually offered this to me at one point in time. What is a formulary? Well, if your medication's not listed with the insurance company in their profile, you can request the treating doctor to write a formulary to request a new medication. The doctor that I was involved with, said, "Oh, I know, Jim, that medication's not covered, but it's no big deal. It's just a one-page formulary. I'll just fill it out and submit that, and they'll approve it." So just know that that's something that you can deal with. You want to ask the doctor if they have free samples to try for new medications. You can also, it's surprising how many sample medications doctors have in their office. So don't be shy to ask for that. If you've heard good things about a medication, you're working with the doctor, doctor's opinion is, yes, that might be a good medication. You can try some samples without having to start off on a full-blown prescription on that. You want to seek the medications. They're going to help the best with the most serious of mental illnesses. You don't want to settle for just you want your loved one back to their old self. You want to look at the photo album, see how they used to be before they developed mental illness. This is what your goal is. Your goal is to find a medication that will help, reinstitute their old personalities, their old self, their own, attributes and so forth. And that is really the goal. And that's why it's so imperative that you keep a journal and you just put all this information in there. It will help your loved one immensely. And Gail, you're usually chiming in, so I guess not. Go ahead, I'll let you go on this one.
Okay, okay. Now, I'm giving you my opinion, okay? And I've done this for so long that it's pretty accurate. If you have a migraine headache and I have a headache and I give you my Tylenol for your migraine, it isn't going to phase it. You have people who have mental health problems and you have people with serious mental illness. We're dealing with serious mental illness. If you give them the medication that really helps people with mental health problems, it isn't going to phase their illness. So I'm going to rattle off the list of medications that most likely, I would say 98% of the time, will not help your loved one, because these are good for people with basically mental health problems. Depakote, Seroquel, it helps you sleep, but it gives you a little clarity, but not much. Ativan, Abilify, there's a whole slew of those, and they really don't help your loved one. You have to up the ante because your loved one has serious mental illness. Invega is one that I think we get a lot of success. Now, this is just my observations. Invega is, well, this is actual right now, but Invega is identical chemical compositions to risperidol. But the difference is risperidol, they're made by the same company, Johnson & Johnson. Risperidol goes to the cell and all the organelles in the cell. Remember your biology? Invega goes to the nucleus of the cell, so it tends to give more on-target messages. You tend to get more clarity of thinking, you're not quite as tired, and you're a bit more motivated to do things. So I like that. It does come in a shot, except a lot of these shots you have to be cautious because it starts to put the weight on the person. But they're also more motivated, so they might exercise more and watch their diet a little bit. So that I like that for that. Risperidol has a shot also. Now, when it comes to a shot, the pharmaceutical companies, they put the shot on a 4-week basis normally. That's what they suggest. Everybody's metabolism is different. So if your loved one has a high metabolism, maybe every 3.5 weeks, they might have to redo that shot, because by 4 weeks, you're lucky if you get them to take the shot. But likewise, some people have a slower metabolism, so you could go 4 weeks, 1 day, 2 day. This is where your journal and you help to determine and work with the doctor when they need that shot. You know, the suggestion is every 4 weeks, but it could be sooner or even later. That's, that's on the shots. Okay, another medication that's very helpful, especially if they are negative schizophrenic. That's where things are taken from them. Positive, you get the entertainment, you get the visuals, the voices, the delusions. Negative, you become a walking zombie. No smile, no facial expressions. You're like, almost like you're just really a walking zombie. So that's the only, well, there is one more that does help now. There's another medication, and that's Vraylar. V as in Victor, Raylar. Whatever medication you want to use, you be sure and read about this. Okay, another one is Cobenfy, Cobenfy. And now Cobenfy helps with the negative schizophrenia. I don't know anybody in California that has taken it, but in Florida, the doctors like it. They a lot. They really do. Caplyta, Caplyta. I've had 5 people in California on it, and the family swears by it. It's wonderful medication. Vraylar, I've had 8 people, because I asked for the feedback, and 6 of those, it's a miracle drug. 2 of those, oh my goodness, it did not work. So keep in mind, what works for one doesn't work for another. You start out slowly and you increase it. If you see good points about it, then you can ask the doctor about increasing it. But if you start out full blown, that's a shock to the person's system. You really don't want to go there. Okay, that's basically, Latuda is another one, Latuda. That's another one. Invega, probably 85 to 90% people that are on it. I've heard pretty good successful stories, but keep in mind, I've got at least that 15% that say, oh no, you have to know your drugs. And if you take the NAMI family to family class, they have an excellent section on medications. So, this is my observations with the feedback that I get, and I do ask y'all for feedback. I really appreciate it, and I learn from you, and I share with you what I learned from others. So if that helps, keep that journal, and everyone you speak with, remember you want their contact information and write down what they say. Now, if you're talking to me, you can write a thesis. You don't want to do that. Just put LPS info. It's pretty much all in the booklet either booklet that we have. All right, Nick. Olga, you want to add?
No, I don't really have anything to add here.
Jim?
I'll chime in. Adderall is one of those medications that you want to be aware of, that it's extremely addictive. So if you find your conservatee asking for Adderall, you might want to think twice on that. And another one that deals with co-occurring illnesses is Wellbutrin. Wellbutrin is very good for their depression and so forth, but it's also something that can, as a pill form, can be crushed and sniffed up the nose, and it gives them a high similar to methamphetamine. So some of these medications can be abused. and some of them can be quite addictive. And there again, look up your medications, drugs.com, talk to your doctor about this, express your concerns and have them help you to avoid these type of medications.
Yeah. I've only had 2 people that I knew of that was on Wellbutrin, and it was disaster.
Yeah.
Now, for mental health, I I don't know. I can't answer on that. But for a serious mental illness, it was disaster. And usually I really don't hear the doctors putting people on Wellbutrin for serious
It
mental
seems to help my conservatee, Gail, but at the
illness.
same time, I tell them crush it, put it in their applesauce or whatever, but don't give it to them in pill form because they'll cheek it every time.
Like I say, what helps one doesn't help another. And you never know. It is trial and error. And that's where you come into play to find the right medications. Okay, shall we go on to the honeydew list? No, go back to the other slide here, Sally, please. Keep those 2 journals, right? The medications, the behavior of the conservatee, and any statements they made or behaviors. You want to have that in that one journal. The other journal, and we keep talking about these journals. Let me tell you, these journals are vital. Everyone you speak to, what their contact information and what they say. And it doesn't hurt to say, what you're telling me is that, this hospital will not do LPS conservatorships. Am I understanding that correctly? You write it down and then we go after that person. So we don't want people fired. We just want their statements corrected. All right, next slide. This is generally how it is. When you place your conservatee, they've gotten the conservatorship there in the LPS, they're in the hospital. The hospital's supposed to hold them until a facility bed becomes available. They request intensive care division to come out and evaluate them. The doctor's giving a suggestion what kind of facility they think they should be into. And they evaluate them and then they give you a suggestion, usually 3 facilities. As a conservator, go visit every one of them and have your list of questions. Is the doctor available when I need to speak with him? What do you do about sex in this place? You don't want to come out as a grandparent or grandmother or whatever. What can we visit him? Can we take him out? What you just want general, you want information, but you want to ask everyone. Do you have therapy? What programs do you have? What do you have? I went in one place and they said, well, we have a library. I went in there and there's a room, it says library, 3 books. I go, that's your library? Well, we just call it a library. I'm sorry, that was inappropriate. And they shouldn't be doing that. When are they doing their programs? How many programs a day? And if the person doesn't go to the program, are they going to let you know? If they go off their medication, will they contact you as the conservator? And on the other thing is on that contract, when your loved one goes to a facility, you write in small print, and this is the last one on this page, that any change in treatment, placement, or medication must have your expressed written permission, must be given for any change in any of this. Because the facilities are of the opinion once you sign their papers, you've basically signed them your LPS conservatorship. They don't have to contact you for anything. And yes, they do. You are the conservator. So write that statement on that contract. They don't like it, but too bad. I mean, you can change contracts anytime you want. As a conservator, by law, your request for a placement facility must be honored as best as possible. If you're asking for Betty Ford facility and you're not paying for it, sorry, the county's not going to pay for it. So you may request it, but you're not going to get it. But be sure and tour these facilities. And if you don't think it's appropriate for your loved one, have a very good reason why. Jim, you want to add something?
I've had only 2 conservators notify me that the hospitals move their conservatee out of their facility to another hospital without talking to them first. But that does happen. It's happened to me, and I contacted the hospital back and got their administrators and said, "Do you know your hospital is in violation of law?" And I just kind of went over all that, and I said I demanded that because I knew the hospital they put them in. I won't say what it was, where it was, or anything else. Don't need the lawsuits. But it was a known hospital that you don't want your loved one put in. I'll just leave it at that. And I said, I want him out of there today. I want you guys to send that ambulance back there. You get him and you bring him back to your facility. Well, it just took a little bit longer than that, but not much. I just wasn't going to tolerate that. So again, you as a conservator have that authority to keep him in the facility that he's in until they finish their treatment. They can't just move him. And one of the conservators lived in extreme South Orange County. I mean, almost down to San Diego. And her conservatee, her daughter, was in one of our local Orange County facilities. And they moved her over to Long Beach. They turned around and they moved her up to Culver City. These things happen. Be aware of it. Don't let these facilities walk on you. Again, it's very important to always be polite, speak with politeness, but boy, just let them understand you're not going to budge. You got to stand up for your rights and just be adamant about it, be polite about it. That's about all.
Yeah, that's why we give you the laws, so you can keep them from pushing you around. And believe me, they do, because they expect everybody to be ignorant, not to know anything, but you're not going to be ignorant.
And you know, I've had cases where I've actually spent a lot of time educating a family that were conservators. Actually, they were trying to, I strike that, trying to get their loved one onto a conservatorship. And the facility that they were in could do that. But then they, without notice, shipped them all the way out to San Bernardino. And they do not facilitate conservatorships in San Bernardino because the county supervisors by law never signed off on the final step of conservatorship. Consequently, they lost the ability and opportunity to obtain a conservatorship. So just know your rights. It's very, very important.
San Bernardino does not have a 30-day hold. So after the 14-day hold, you're out of there.
That's right.
Next slide. Placement and treatment via the hospital. We mentioned, did we go backwards? I don't know. Anyway, I'll just go over it quickly. The intensive care evaluates your loved one for placement. You can only be transferred from a lockdown to a lockdown. The Institute for Mental Disease, referred to as an IMD, is a lockdown facility where the hospital will first discharge the patient. But if the person is in the hospital, you've been granted the LPS, now you work really hard to find the right medication while they're in the hospital. And if they improve and they're not a flight risk, they can skip the IMD and be discharged to enhanced residential setting, which is a secure treatment facility, but it's not a lockdown. So sometimes they can check themselves in and out, but they're not a flight risk. They're not going to take off. The reason why you want the IMD is because they are a flight risk. And until they get stable, and I don't consider a tranquilizer stability. I mean, they're recovering and they're doing well and starting to recognize things. You really want them in a lockdown. All right. Jim, did you want to add anything on that?
No, I think we're good on it. Thank you, Gil.
Next slide. The normal movement through the treatment facilities, generally you start out with the IMD, then they can go to the enhanced residential setting, board and care, which is the least restricted. And by the way, check out those board and cares. Some of them I think are pimp houses and others are drug dens. So check them out and ask questions. Like I said, you have to go from a lockdown hospital or jail to a lockdown. And you can skip facility. We pretty much said this stuff already. Next slide. Treatment and placement via the jail. Okay, you don't have the right to say where the person goes, even though you're the conservator. But generally, if they're going from a jail, it's going to be into a state hospital, patent, or metropolitan. That's normally where they do it. If they're doing a jail diversion program, they have to agree to that jail diversion program. And they may end up putting them in a residential housing setting, whatever program they have, and you pretty much go along with that. But keep in mind, if they don't follow the program and they go off their meds, you want to get them back in the hospital. Jim? Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Jim, I took yours. Sorry.
Good job. I wanted to just let you go. I'll just add that, and I was talking about this with Gail actually. I've learned that it used to be that if somebody had been arrested and they were going to be sent off to one of the state mental hospitals, they would wait till there's a bed available in the closest facility, like here, Metropolitan's right up here in Norwalk. But there were problems with that, and it ended up that they changed that to the first available bed, irrespective of where the hospital was located, the state hospital. And so we've had people whose conservatees were arrested, and then they were put in jail, and from there they were sent up to Panton, which is way up in Northern California. And it was very difficult to go up and visit and that type of thing. But just so you understand a little bit about how the process works and placement in our state hospitals. And that's
By law, they're supposed to put them close to you if a bed is available. But if the bed's not available, then they can put them anywhere.
they put them anywhere.
Yes.
Okay, next slide.
Right.
Olga?
Yes, so the doctor can request that the court remove you as conservator if you're not acting in the best interest of the conservatee. So as conservator, you must be reasonable, or the treating doctor can request the court remove you as conservator, and you can change treating doctors as well. But I do want to point out that yes, if you're not acting in the best interest of the conservatee, say for instance, the conservatee is in a locked IMD, and they've gone ahead and met all their treatment goals there. They're ready to be discharged to a lower level of care, and that's what the treatment team is recommending. If that private conservator is not in agreement with the conservatee being discharged to a lower level of care, even though the mental health professionals who have been treating that conservatee feel that this conservatee has met all their treatment goals and should be given the benefit of being discharged to a lower level of care. If the conservator is not willing to go ahead and authorize that discharge to a lower level of care, the treatment facility can write a letter to the Norwalk courthouse notifying the judge that they're not acting in the best interest of the conservatee, and they can request that the private conservator be removed and that a public guardian take over as conservator. So it is important, as mentioned, for the private conservator to act in the best interest of the conservatee and follow the advice of the mental health professionals who are treating the conservatee.
Just to say, if you go to court and, some doctors, some are excellent and some you kind of wonder about. If you go to court and you have good reasons, bullet your reasons, bring them up in court, and the judge, they don't always remove you as a conservator. They'll make other changes, or if you have a suggestion, would be better for my loved one, then they're not going to remove you. But
Right, not in all cases. If there's good reasons for why the
right.
conservator is not wanting that discharge to take place. I mean that's investigated and that needs to be addressed. But not in all cases the court will remove the private conservator.
Right. They want to have a good reason why. Yes.
Right.
Thank you, Olga. Next slide.
conservatee's loss of rights, and I kind of touched on this earlier in our presentation today, but there are temporary restrictions for the conservatee. While they're on the conservatorship, they lose the right to drive a car. And as I understand, DMV actually sends that notification out. They lose the right to enter contracts, and they lose the right, to determine where they are going to be living. Basically, the more permanent restrictions for the conservatee would be the right to shoot and possess guns. Gail, you do such a great presentation on this. I think that you can talk about it because I've never gone through this thing about reinstating the right to drive a car, and this presentation basically is for LA. So can you touch on that, on how you can get their rights back and what department they might go to and so forth? And
right. Okay. If the public guardian is the conservator, then they're not going to say, okay, you can drive a car, you can enter contracts or whatever. But if you are the conservator and you feel it's appropriate for your loved one to drive a car, they've got a job and maybe their job requires that they drive a car. I mean, they're doing pretty good. Then there's a form that you write a letter to the doctor, put it in writing, you feel that they're ready to drive a car. The doctor fills out the form, it goes to court, and it's approved. Now, DMH, and sometimes they're not always getting the information that they're not supposed to drive a car, but if they did, then they hold a hearing. Is basically they just want to make sure that you're of sound mind. You know, give me your name, rank, and you know, serial number. Okay, you're good to go. It's not a big deal, but people get a little nervous about it. And sometimes they have to retake the driver's license test. It depends on what the situation is, but they can get the right to drive a car back while under the conservatorship. To enter contracts, if they're doing a job where they have to have people sign contracts, or if they're getting married, they have to they have to sign a contract. So a private conservator, you or whatever, can let them have that. And that's not a big deal. You just ask the court for that. And they can determine where they live. You work with your conservator. The goal is to get them back their life the way it should be. The more permanent restriction is the right to shoot and possess a gun. And that is usually good for 5 years. Now, if they need it sooner, they can go to court and get that right back. I've only known of it happening one time, and Linda Boyd was talking about it yesterday, and I don't know if she's talking about the same case I know, because I knew the attorney that was representing the person, but he needed the gun because he was a security officer. And really in that situation, it would have been fine. So that's, that just kind of gives you an idea. The only right they cannot get back is the right to refuse medication. And that is the essence of the LPS conservatorship. Anybody want to chime in? Next slide. Reinstate the rights of the conservatee. I already said they can get the right to drive the car, and I mentioned writing the note to the doctor. The doctor fills out the form, you give it to the court approves it, and they pretty much do. If the doctor says he can, okay. The DMH evaluates them, and to enter contracts, you just give that notice to this is not the doctor. You go directly to the court and ask them to be reinstated to enter contracts. Next slide.
Yes, so renewal of conservatorship. So the LPS conservatorship, it does terminate by law after a year. So whenever a private conservator is appointed, they need to be aware that they need to go ahead and request for the conservatorship or petition for the conservatorship to be renewed. They should be doing that at least 3 months early to avoid having the conservatorship lapse. Because if it lapses, then the conservatorship process will, will have to start all over again, where the individual will need to be placed in an acute setting, and the treatment team there submit another referral to public guardian office for conservatorship. So in order to renew the conservatorship, it does require for two doctors to sign the declaration. It's called a conservatorship reevaluation physician's declaration. And it's form stating that the person is still, that the person is gravely disabled. So this form is sent into the courthouse in order to go ahead and have the conservatorship renewed for an additional year.
If you're worried, if your loved one has a treating doctor and he signs it and you go, we don't have another doctor treating ours, ask your doctor. They have, their friends, not friends, but their partners they're working with or whoever, and they usually know somebody who's willing to sign that paper after they evaluate your loved one. Okay, next slide.
Yes, so the definition of gravely disabled here, it's a condition in which a person, as a result of their mental health disorder, a severe substance use disorder, or a co-occurring mental health disorder, and a severe substance use disorder, is unable to provide for their basic personal needs for food, clothing, shelter, personal safety, or necessary medical care. But this new definition is the one that's taking effect next year in January.
Next
So
slide. Oh, go ahead.
I was
Dan.
going to ask Olga, so does that apply to any one of those items? Like they could go out and get clothes maybe from Goodwill, but they can't afford to rent someplace safe to live. Is that just very much the same as it is now, that any one of those would qualify him for being gravely disabled?
Well, we're still taking a look at this new definition and how, it's actually going to be applied for next year.
Okay.
Okay, but they do have the or in there, orness. So you list all those, and then
Right.
once the or not end, then it should be any one of them.
Right.
Right.
Okay, next slide.
So yeah, so gravely disabled, as it is defined as of now, it does pertain to someone with a mental illness not being able to provide for their basic needs of food, clothing, and shelter, and of course they're unwilling or unable to accept voluntary mental health treatment.
Right, and on this, I'm gonna just say, and it also says, if someone is willing to provide their food, clothing, and shelter, they're not gravely disabled. And that's when the hospital will say, we're dismissing them at 3 o'clock, will you be picking them up? The moment you say yes, the hospital was correct. That's today, not January 21st. So, and you only had to hit one of those. When you go to court, basically you say, what you're pushing is the gravely disabled. The doctor has already testified that they're mentally ill. The state of California presently does not care how ill they are, how crazy they are, but if they don't have the food, clothing, or shelter, you're not going to get the LPS. So you kind of have to balance things on that.
I'd like to chime in also that my conservatee was contesting the conservatorship, and the public defender's office called me. And anytime I get a call from the public defender's office, the red flags go up immediately in my head. And so she was chatting with me, and she said, by the way, Mr. Farrell, if your son is able to get off of conservatorship when we go to court, would you be willing then to help him, with his housing and other needs as well? Well, only because I know what I know, I said, no, I won't be helping him. If I tell you that I will be helping him, then by law, he's no longer gravely disabled because I would be somebody there to help him. If the court deems him to be stable and no longer needing to be on a conservatorship, then he won't need my help, will he? And she just silence. She was dumbfounded that she was talking to somebody that knew that. But I want all of you to know that as well. My son, again, is contesting conservatorship. I should say conservatee, but I'm not saying his name. But the point is, I heard that question out of my son's mouth. Dad, if I if I get off a conservatorship, will you be helping with me? And I thought, oh boy, did somebody coach him on that question? And my answer was, Morgan, I'm sorry, I can't answer that question, because if I say yes, then you're going to be off conservatorship, and if I say no, you might stay on it, but the court and doctors will decide that, whether or not you get off. And I'll just let it go at that. But just keep in mind that I've even had a judge try that trick question on me.
Oh, they do.
Prepare yourself mentally for that question when it comes up. And the judge was almost aghast. He said, "What? You won't help take care of your own son?" And I said, "Well, Your Honor, it's just that if I say that I will, then you and I both know he immediately is no longer qualified to be on a conservatorship." And I just shut up, and he shut up. We went forward, and he stayed on conservatorship. All right, I've beat that horse enough. So go on the slide.
But it's true. And that is one of the trick questions hospitals will ask you. And I'm not telling you how to answer it. We kind of gave you the law and what it is.
Oh.
But if it were my kid, I'd be sitting in the parking lot to pick him up after
Absolutely.
I told the hospital no.
Yeah.
So, because I don't trust those hospitals, they'll still discharge. They discharged a legally blind girl, gave her a ticket and told her to go to a shelter, and the dad was looking for her and had a massive heart attack because of the stress.
Oh,
It's disgusting what takes place.
Oh.
Next slide.
So so whenever a conservatorship, so to point out here, the conservatees do have a right to go ahead and contest the conservatorship. So when they're coming up for renewal, they could go ahead and contest it and either ask for a court trial where the judge determines, whether they're gravely disabled, whether they're still gravely disabled, or they could go ahead and ask for a jury trial where you have 12 jurors decide. So it is a decision of the conservatee whether they want a court trial or a jury trial.
A jury trial is very stressful. Don't pick the people, because you can work with the attorney on this. Don't pick the people that have the spiked hair, the tattoos all over, the piercings. Chances are they're going to say, well, you're taking their rights away. You really don't want to go there. That is very, very difficult. And Scientologist, you don't want a Scientologist on that jury. You can eliminate so many jurors. You have the right for that. Okay, next slide. Oh, just want to add one more thing on the other one slide. The public defender is not your friend. He is the attorney for your loved one.
Right.
So some people go, that attorney was so nasty. They don't understand mental illness. That is not what they're supposed to do. As if, just as in a criminal court, if a person murdered somebody, that judge is supposed to do whatever his client wants him to do. That attorney is supposed to do whatever your loved one wants him to do. If he wants off the conservatorship, then the job for that attorney is to fight against conservatorships. So don't get ticked off at them and go, what's the matter? Why do they have that person in this court? They're doing their job. County counsel is for you, or for the public actually, and they will fight to keep the person on that conservatorship. Your history, symptoms, and gravely disabled that you give to the public guardian, take it to the court, because sometimes you need it at the court and it will help too. Okay. Jim?
Okay, so a couple of things. When a conservatee goes AWOL, and it does happen a lot, you want to file a missing persons report. When you file your missing persons report, you do not have to wait for any period of time because your loved one is on conservatorship. They're deemed to be gravely disabled. And so anyone that's disabled of any nature goes right to the top of the missing persons report. availability, you do not have to wait 24 hours or anything like that. They immediately have to the police department has to put in a report to a national reporting agency, and they have to put the word out on the streets to all of their cars to look or at least keep an eye out for this individual and that type of thing. There's a outpost for hope down at the bottom of the slide that you might want to take note on. That's been an amazing website. They even teach law enforcement about missing persons. I got to know the individual that runs that website pretty well. She lives in Florida, just the other side of Florida from you, Gail, in fact. And basically, she had a sister that went missing for quite some time, years, and it's just horrible. But she has herself put together a whole program on what to do as a conservator or a family member, what to do if your loved one disappears someplace. There's some websites that only law enforcement can enter information into. There's another website that you yourself can enter photographs and information into. And they give you a lot of directions to let you know how to best increase the chances of finding your loved one and getting them back home again. I've been sworn to secrecy by the person who runs this website, but things don't always turn out the best. In fact, there's tens of thousands of John and Jane Does buried in funeral plots across our country, from coast to coast, that are John Does, Jane Does. So you want to do your best to retrieve them. And it's recommended that you keep hair samples. Gail always points out that hair samples are something you should put into a dry envelope and keep in a dry place. So if your loved one goes missing, you can supply some of that hair for a DNA sample, so that if a forensic undertaker were to find your loved one someplace, they could, let you know that they have expired. It's critically important. I can think of some families that their daughter just was always missing, and we went through so much bringing her home only to have her take off again. It's just, I could tell you a whole story about some of this stuff, but you want to prepare yourself and not panic. You want to make sure you immediately file that missing persons report. Go to Outpost for Hope. It will give you further ideas. In fact, I suggest everybody do that now, whether you have your loved one missing or not, so you'll just be prepared if that happens. So it does happen, and you want to do everything you can to find them and get them home and get them back on treatment, okay? Because we don't want to lose anybody. Gail, do you want to add to that?
Yes, I do. Actually, when you file, if your loved one's under the conservatorship, give the conservatorship to a copy of it to the police, because when they find your loved one, they're going to ask you, what do you want to have happen? You can say, take them to the hospital, and they will tell you where. And by the way, when your loved one is picked up by the police before conservatorship and all that, it is civil, it is not HIPAA, so they can tell you where they're taking them. If the police don't, always get their cards, call their watch commander, and they will tell you where they took them. Once they cross the threshold of the hospital, now you're into HIPAA. That's a different story. Okay, as to, let's say you have someone not under the conservatorship, as Jim said, you don't have to wait 24 hours. You can report them. And now when the police find them, which they really don't go out looking for them, they just call the jail and see have they been in jail, or if somebody happens to see them. But if they do find them, they'll call and let you know, okay, we found your loved one and he's doing fine. What you can do at that time, thank them. They will not tell you where they are, but you can say, I really appreciate what you did. I'd like to buy you lunch or a cup of coffee or whatever. Can you tell me what is the nearest restaurant to you and what street you're on, so that I can call call that restaurant and pay for your dinner. And they'll say, well, you don't have to do that, but you know, we're on such and such street. And they will many times tell you that. So that gives you an idea where your loved one is. All right, next slide,
Well,
Jim.
I just want to close on that by saying that there was someone who had been very involved with Outpost for Hope. When they heard word that their loved one was out here in Anaheim, the individual who runs the Outpost for Hope told a parent in Arizona to contact me, and he finally surfaced. They in fact did not want to file a missing persons report here in our county because she was calling from out of state, and I finally got a chief of police in Tustin to straighten the Garden Grove office out on this. But ultimately, because we got a missing persons report filed, when the Los Angeles Police Department in fact found this individual because he came to their attention, they called him mother in Arizona and told her where he was and said, by the way, now that you know where he's at, we're taking him off the missing persons report. So that's how you can expect the Los Angeles PD to act with you. So if you get a call from somebody out on the street, as Gail just talked about, don't forget what she just told you to do. Offer to buy them that cup of coffee, and where's there a restaurant close by where we can be? Okay, so I'll move on. Olga, I will leave this for you.
Yeah, so leaving the state of California. So LPS is a specific law for California. So one on an LPS conservatorship here in California, it does not mean that the conservatorship is going to transfer out of state. So it is only for here. And you must have court permission to leave the state. So yes, a conservatee must have court permission to leave the state. Say for instance, they need to attend some kind of funeral for a family member out of state. You need to notify the court and request permission to leave the state. And California presently does not have reciprocity with other states. So yes, the LPS conservatorship here does not transfer out of state.
Okay, we're coming up to the end of our presentation. These are words that I think of the wisdom of Gail that's with us today here. She wrote, "Thank you for your determination and endurance to help your loved one. When you think you've had enough, you can still give 10% more. That's the Navy SEALs model. Yet the Navy SEALs have not walked our road. So keep strong, take care of yourself. You are your loved one's strongest chance for recovery. Just remember that when you're feeling overwhelmed and depressed, think about the fact that when you're in an airplane and you have a small child sitting next to you, that if suddenly the cabin were to lose pressure, this oxygen mask will fall down, one for you, one for your son, one for the next window seat. And what you're supposed to do is the instinct is put the oxygen mask on the child next to you. But you don't want to do that because of the lack of oxygen. You may pass out and not get your mask on, either one of you. So you want to put your mask on first, get your oxygen, stay conscious, and then put the mask on the child. And it's the same thing here. You can't help your loved one when they're going through depression, they're going through suicidal ideations, they're going through behavioral issues that are off the chart. You need to stay strong for them. You need to keep their needed services in line for them. And you can't do that if you go down like a rock. So, stay strong. If you find yourself needing help, there's no shame in going to your doctor and say, hey, I need an antidepressant. I can't handle this. I was invited to talk at the Orange County Sheriff's Department. And one of the things that I shared with them is that there are more sheriffs that die from their own revolver than sheriffs that die from the hands of somebody else shooting them. The depression the things that they see, the things that they have to endure are overwhelming. And I told them, don't let that make you a victim. go for help, get help. You've got a family to think of and everything else. So it's the same thing in our camp, folks. Stay strong, take care of yourself, and then you can take care of your loved one. With that, I'll move on.
No. I want to add something to this.
Please do.
The fact that y'all are taking these programs and are calling and asking us for help to help your loved one, you're amazing parents or family members, whatever. You really are amazing. You should pat yourself on the back because of you, your loved one has a prayer for recovery. If you look downtown LA and Orange County, you see a lot of people, their families had to abandon them. Nothing against their families for doing that because it's very difficult. But your loved one has the greatest chance of recovery because of what you are doing. And you are honestly a lot stronger than what you think you are. And you are amazing parents. I have one fellow I talked to yesterday and he said, well, I kind of snoop in his room. I said, you're a darn good parent if you ask me. I mean, that's the best thing you can do. Find out what you can find out about your loved one. But you guys, I admire you so much because it is not easy. And if you have days that you're down in the dumps, it's okay. We all do. Just get a cup of coffee, cup of tea, watch a funny movie because it puts different hormones in your brain and it brings you back, get a good night's sleep, and you're ready to go to battle tomorrow, the next day. But keep yourself strong, whatever you do. If you need to reach out to somebody and have a good friend that you can talk with. When you talk with other people too, don't always talk about mental health. Talk about fun things. Because if that's all you deal with, you won't make it. It's too much of a downer. So do things that'll lift you up a little bit. Okay, next slide.
So we want to thank all of you for coming today. And this program that NAMI Urban Los Angeles is putting on is in fact something that is an additional cost for them. So we like those of you that are financially in a position to donate to think about doing that. If you're barely making it from paycheck to paycheck, from Social Security check to Social Security check, that type of thing, please do not even think about it. But if you are in a position to send in whatever you can afford, it helps to offset the cost involved in these productions and so forth, and for the employees that have to come in on their day off and so forth. So just do that, mail a check in to this address if you will, please, and write on the check or something for LPS Conservatorship program. That would be immensely appreciated. In fact,
It really would be.
When I try to remember that, I get a lot of calls here in Orange County, and for those that I help, I say, if you want to express your gratitude, send a check to NAMI Urban Los Angeles. So, this is one of the best NAMIs that I think I've ever come up against. Orange County NAMI is also incredible, but boy, NAMI Urban LA, take your head off. You guys are awesome what you're doing here. So thank you for all the support. Okay, next slide.
And thank you guys for coming and doing this. I mean, from the bottom of my heart, your kids are blessed. They have no idea. Okay.